Welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. Another week of lockdown and maybe more to come. It's just getting tired. Um, feels like a lot of things are getting put on hold and it's getting quite frustrating. Just when you feel like there might be some hope, things kind of take a downturn. I am trying to keep busy with yarn dyeing and things around the farm, but it's just starting to feel a little bit the same. It just does get hard at times. Um, I think maybe I need to stop watching the news quite so much. It's important to know what's going on, but it also does get quite overwhelming at times as well. So during lockdown this week, I was able to go out and get my second vaccine. I did have a little bit of sickness the following day, but I feel like I'm okay now. So all dosed up and done with the vaccine until boosters come along. So that is a good thing to have done so that when we get out of this lockdown, um, I will have the confidence of having been fully vaccinated. As I've said before, I feel like it is a personal preference and everyone has to choose their own path on this. So my choice was to get vaccinated, but everyone can choose to do their own thing. So what project did we get up to this week on the farm? I did say last week that there were a few things we had in mind, and we got stuck into a fairly big one, really. Last year, we spent a few weeks getting all of the ivy off the old dairy shed. It had been overrun by ivy, and we could see that it was being really crushed by it because it was so heavy. It was also becoming a haven for wasps, which was getting quite dangerous because we were walking back and forth past it all the time, and we didn't want to have that issue anymore. So we cut all the ivy off, and then we realized just how crooked it actually was. So it's been univied for about a year, and we hadn't really figured out what we were going to do. We had thought about trying to straighten it up, somehow brace it and pull it or push it, or I don't know, get it into a much more square situation. But after looking at it for quite a while and having it sort of in the way now with the new shed, we decided that it had to come down. We can use that space in much better ways instead of having the old rickety dairy shed, which we were using for wood and hay storage, but we have a few more options for doing that. So we're going to move that to other areas of the farm. And we pulled down the shed. First, we got stuck in with sledgehammers and crowbars. We wanted to get all of the metal fittings out of it. It used to have a dairy churn in it, so we broke the walls to get that out. And we thought we might be able to salvage some of the palings and use for other things. We like to recycle and use old wood for different projects, which we've done many times. But as we started to pull pieces away, they were breaking. The ivy had grown inside between the panels, and it had also been nesting spots for birds and rats. And so pretty much every panel was damaged in some way. So actually not really worth saving. It would have been a lot of work to pull all of that out and only get a little bit back in return. So the decision was that we would pull it apart and drag it over to the fire and we would burn it all. So we got a rope around part of it, one of the walls, and we pulled it with the Hilux. And with a little bit of effort, the wall just popped out. and we dragged it over to the fire, and that started the process of pulling the whole thing apart. But then, rather than take it to the fire, we thought, why don't we just take the fire to the shed? So, first we had to sort of pull it down a little bit. It was going to fall once we lit it, we thought, towards the new shed just because of the way that it was leaning and how rickety it was. So we again got another rope, we pulled it down and away from the shed, but just in the spot. We didn't really do any dragging or anything like that. And then we lit the fire underneath and it just went up. It's amazing how quickly something like that can burn. So you have to be really careful. We did have the hose on standby and we were really careful. There was no wind. It was a beautiful still day, so it was safe to do it. So in the end, that ended up being a much more efficient way to get rid of it all rather than pulling and removing it all to another spot to burn it. We just burnt it in situ on top of the slab where it was. Then the next day, we were able to clear the tin away and go back through the ash and remove nails and screws and things like that. And now we've cleared the slab and we have a few options. So we want to build a greenhouse to be able to grow seed plants for feeding the chickens, sort of to become a little bit more self-sufficient in that area for the chooks. So we could build the greenhouse on this slab that already exists. But it's opened up the space and it feels really big and open there now. So we're questioning whether or not that would actually be a good spot to build it because it will block everything back in again. But then being a greenhouse, it'll be clear, so it won't be quite the same and it won't be sort of as thin and tall. It will be a bit more open. Or we could get a digger in and break up the slab and bury the concrete or use it for filling in holes and then just gravel the space and have an open area in front of the shed. The greenhouse will probably happen either way. It's just whether or not it happens in that space or somewhere else. It does seem a bit silly to break up some concrete that is still usable and then try and make something somewhere else. So we probably will end up doing the greenhouse there, but we're sort of leaving it open for thought at the moment. Give it a little while to sort of sink in that the shed is gone and to now make the next steps. We don't have the supplies for the greenhouse, so we won't be building that in the next few weeks um, because we can't get anything because we're in lockdown. So we do have some time to sort of think that through and decide what's going to happen next. I've been doing even more dyeing this week in preparation for the big wool show that's coming up on the 4th and 5th of September. Just getting my stocks of lattice sock dyed up so that there is lots in the shop that is ready to ship. I will still have my custom orders open as well, but it would be nice to have a good selection of colours dyed up that people can get pretty much straight away. So I've done some hangover, some fairy floss, some fresh start. It's got little pops of pink in there. And some Sitting Pretty, which is inspired by this chair. And while I was doing that dyeing, I also threw a couple of skeins of DK yarn into a pot. I had some dye powder jars that had little bits left in it, and I was doing a lot of mixing. So I had jars that I was tipping in to dye these colorways, and they were leaving little bits of dye in the bottom of each of the jars. So I thought I would just do a bit of an experiment, throw everything into a pot with this DK yarn and just make some unrepeatable once off sort of color. So it ended up being a bright yellow because the main powder that I had left was yellow, and then it's got some green and some brown and some purple, just a little bit of fun. And it was a good way to use up some of the leftover dyes, some powder, some unexhausted dye, and not waste any of that color. I've made some really good progress on my Crossover Cardi. I have just put it onto a longer cable so that I could try it on and show you because it was really bunched up on the needles. So I have, there's the back there, and you can see the first border, which I've just finished. It goes all the way around the outside and at the bottom as well. And I'm still only on the second ball. So I probably will only need 3, and I bought 5. So I'm quite surprised at how far this yarn is going. It's quite good. Um, I still need to do on the insides, pick up the inside of the sleeve and do a similar garter there as well. So that will be a little bit extra. And now I've got to do the second border, which is where the texture and cables come in. It feels like it might be a little short across the front, but I think I'm going to trust the pattern because so far it's worked out really well. All that talk about it being confusing, as I thought, once I actually started to knit it and follow what the pattern was saying, it has made sense and has worked out really well. And the back fits really great on. So I think that the border across the front will end up working out. If it doesn't, I can probably add a little bit. I don't know if I can. But yeah, so this is working out really well and I'm enjoying it. I've also continued to work on my current pair of socks. I've now put in the heel and I've got not too much left to go on the leg. I did take these with me when I got vaccinated to knit on for the waiting time, both before and after the needle. It was kind of fun to knit in public. It's been a long time since I've done that. And it was good to have something to do. I've also been working on the blanket that I'm making bigger. I have finished the first of the log cabin panels and I'm now on to the second one. And so it is starting to get quite large now. It's funny, the colors look more different on the screen than they do in person. It blends much better in real life than it does on the screen. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do is make this side, the top maybe, and then the opposite side at the bottom of here, bigger than the side panels, so that it becomes more of a rectangle than a square. And then after this, I'm going to add a border in a solid color. So I'm now working with the lady who owns the blanket to come up with a good color that is going to suit the blanket and suit the decor of her house, to bring everything together and to create something that they were going to want to use in their house for a long time to come. So this has been nice to do on the couch, especially at night when it's been cool but not cold enough really for the fire. I can pop it over my lap and use it as a blanket while I'm knitting on it at the same time. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.